The Vanishing Billionaire, March 14, 2019, 11:47 p.m. Eastern Time. Catherine Aldridge Monroe's phone rang in her Boston brownstone, jolting her awake. The caller ID showed a number she hadn't seen in months. Her brother, Marcus. His voice sounded different, distant, transformed. "Kate, I found it," Marcus whispered, his words echoing as if speaking from inside a cathedral. "Everything we've been searching for our entire lives. It's here, in the mountains." That was the last time anyone in the Aldridge family heard from Marcus Aldridge, the billionaire real estate mogul who had spent 3 years circumnavigating the globe, visiting every country on Earth. But what started as a luxury world tour would become something far stranger, something that would cost the family everything. And 4 years later, when $2.7 billion vanished overnight from accounts across 3 continents, the question wouldn't just be, where is Marcus Aldridge? It would be, did Marcus Aldridge steal his own fortune, or did someone else destroy everything he built? The billionaire Marcus Aldridge, 58 years old, Manhattan real estate and tech mogul, $2.7 billion net worth. The siblings, Catherine, Kate. Aldridge Monroe, 54, eldest sister, CFO of Aldridge Holdings, lives in Boston. Jonathan John Aldridge, 52, brother, COO of Aldridge Enterprises, lives in Chicago, Victoria. Vicky Aldridge Chen, 49, youngest sister, VP of International Operations, lives in San Francisco corporate team. Richard Pemberton, 61, General Counsel and Power of Attorney, lives in Manhattan. David Kensington, 47, CEO of Aldridge Enterprises, lives in Connecticut. Others, Lama Tenzin Dorje, Tibetan Buddhist teacher who Marcus met in Lhasa. FBI agent Sarah Carmichael, 39, financial crimes investigator, the dreamer. Marcus Aldridge wasn't born rich. He was born in Queens, New York, the eldest of 4 children in a working-class family. His father worked construction. His mother cleaned offices at night. But Marcus had something his siblings didn't, an obsession with impossible dreams. By age 25, he'd flipped his first property in Brooklyn. By 30, he owned 12 buildings across Manhattan. By 40, he'd expanded into technology startups, venture capital, and international real estate development. His net worth exceeded $2 billion before his 50th birthday. But money, Marcus often said, wasn't the destination. It was the vehicle. "I'm going to see every country on Earth," he announced at a family dinner in 2016, 6 months after his 55th birthday. "All 195. I'm going to understand how the world really works, how people really live." His siblings thought it was a midlife crisis, a billionaire's fantasy, a temporary escape from the pressure of managing a global empire. They didn't understand that Marcus Aldridge was searching for something none of them could comprehend: meaning beyond money, purpose beyond profit, truth beyond the material world. The journey begins. Marcus departed New York in January 2017, leaving his 3 siblings in charge of Aldridge Holdings and Aldridge Enterprises, the twin corporate entities that controlled his fortune. Kate handled finances. John managed operations. Vicky oversaw international expansion. Richard Pemberton, Marcus's longtime attorney, held power of attorney and legal authority to make decisions in Marcus's absence. David Kensington, the CEO Marcus had personally recruited from Goldman Sachs, ran day-to-day operations. The arrangement was clear. Marcus would travel. They would maintain the empire. He trusted them completely. For 18 months, Marcus sent regular updates. Photos from Patagonia, videos from Madagascar, long philosophical emails from cafes in Prague and temples in Cambodia. He was happy, energized, alive in ways his siblings had never seen. And then in August 2018, Marcus arrived in Tibet. The transformation, the messages changed immediately. "I met a teacher here," Marcus wrote from Lhasa. "Lama Tenzin Dorje. He's showing me things I never knew existed. This isn't religion, it's reality. The true structure of consciousness and existence." Kate forwarded the email to John and Vicky with a one-word comment: "Concerned?" The next email was longer. "Stranger. Buddhism isn't what I thought it was," Marcus wrote. It's not worship. It's science. The science of mind. The technology of awakening. I'm staying longer. Don't worry. Everything is exactly as it should be. Weeks became months. Marcus stopped sending photos. His emails grew increasingly abstract, filled with references to meditation retreats, advanced practices and experiences he struggled to articulate. And then came the phone call. March 14th, 2019. Kate's phone. Marcus's voice. I found it. Everything we've been searching for. It's here, in the mountains. Marcus, what are you talking about? Kate demanded. When are you coming home? There was a long pause. Static on the line. Then Marcus spoke again, his voice barely a whisper. Home isn't a place, Kate. It's a state of being. I need more time. Trust me. I'm closer than I've ever been. The line went dead. That was the last anyone heard from Marcus Aldridge. The silence. Months of worry. April 2019. May. June. No word from Marcus. Kate tried calling the last number he'd used. Disconnected. She contacted the U.S. Embassy in Nepal. They had no record of Marcus Aldridge entering or leaving the country recently. She hired a private investigator to track him down in Tibet. The investigator reported that Marcus had been staying at a remote monastery near Lhasa, but had left months earlier. No one knew where he'd gone. John suggested filing a missing persons report. Vicky argued they should wait. Marcus was an adult, and he'd made it clear he wanted space. Richard Pemberton, the family attorney, offered a pragmatic perspective. Marcus is entitled to his spiritual journey. He left clear instructions. We continue managing his assets. When he's ready, he'll return. So they waited, and they worked. Aldridge Holdings continued operating. Quarterly reports showed steady profits. Real estate developments in Dubai and Singapore moved forward. Technology investments yielded strong returns. On paper, everything looked perfect. But privately, the siblings were fracturing. Kate grew increasingly anxious about Marcus's absence. It's been over a year, she told John during a tense phone call in August 2019. This isn't normal. Something's wrong. John dismissed her concerns. Marcus always does things his own way. Remember when he disappeared to Bhutan for 3 months in 2008? He came back fine. Vicky, managing operations from San Francisco, noticed something else. Unusual financial activity. Small transfers. Accounts being consolidated. Nothing alarming, but odd. Richard, she asked Pemberton during a conference call, are you moving funds around? Routine portfolio rebalancing, Pemberton replied smoothly. Marcus's investment strategy requires periodic adjustments. It sounded reasonable, but Vicky couldn't shake a nagging feeling that something wasn't right. The vanishing September 12, 2023, 4 years and 8 months after Marcus's last phone call. Kate woke to 17 missed calls on her phone, all from John. She called back immediately. John answered on the first ring, his voice shaking. Kate, the money, all of it, it's gone. What are you talking about? I got a call from the bank at 6 a.m. Every account, every offshore holding, every investment portfolio, transferred, emptied, moved. I don't know where, but it's all gone, Kate. Every single dollar. Kate's blood ran cold. That's impossible. There are safeguards. Authorizations required multiple signatures. Someone had full access, John interrupted. Someone with complete authority moved everything overnight. $2.7 billion vanished. Within hours, the entire Aldridge family convened an emergency video conference. Kate in Boston, John in Chicago, Vicky in San Francisco, Richard Pemberton calling in from his Manhattan office, David Kensington joining from Connecticut. The questions came fast and brutal. Who had the authority to move that much money? Marcus. Richard Pemberton with power of attorney. And technically, with the right authentication codes, any of the siblings could authorize large transfers, but only with multiple confirmations. Had Marcus returned? Had he taken his own money? No one had heard from him. The U.S. Embassy confirmed no passport activity, no flight records, no border crossings. Had Pemberton moved the funds? Absolutely not. Pemberton declared, his voice steady but cold. I've spent 30 years building my reputation. I would never betray a client. This wasn't me. Then who? The room went silent. Accusations hung in the air, unspoken but palpable. Was it Kate, desperate to secure her own financial future? Was it John, who'd always lived in Marcus's shadow and might have finally snapped? Was it Vicky, operating from San Francisco with access to international accounts? Was it Pemberton, The only person with legal authority to act in Marcus's name? Or was it David Kensington, the CEO who knew every financial system in the company? Or, most disturbing of all, had Marcus orchestrated this himself? Had his spiritual awakening been a cover story for something far more calculated? The investigation begins within 48 hours. The FBI was involved. Agent Sarah Carmichael, a veteran financial crimes investigator, took the lead. "This is one of the largest single-day financial disappearances I've ever seen," Carmichael told the family during their first meeting. "We're tracking the money through international banking systems, but whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing." The transfers were routed through 17 different countries, multiple shell corporations, and encrypted cryptocurrency exchanges. Cryptocurrency? Vicky leaned forward. "Are you saying the money was converted?" "Partially," Carmichael confirmed. "About $1.8 billion was moved into various cryptocurrency wallets. The rest is still being traced through traditional banking channels. But here's what concerns me most. The person who did this had intimate knowledge of Marcus Aldridge's entire financial structure. Every account, every password, every authentication protocol. The implication was clear. This was an inside job. Someone in this room, or someone very close to the family, had destroyed the Aldridge fortune, and the investigation was just beginning. Production notes. Mystery established with multiple suspects. Family dynamics and tension introduced. Spiritual journey versus financial crime setup. Hook questions embedded throughout following the money agent. Sarah Carmichael established a command center in the Aldridge Holdings Manhattan office. Screens displayed transaction records, account histories, and cryptocurrency blockchain traces that looked like digital spiderwebs spreading across the globe. "Let me walk you through what we know," Carmichael said, addressing the assembled family and corporate team. On September 11th, at 11:47 p.m. Eastern Time, someone initiated a coordinated series of wire transfers from 43 different Aldridge accounts. She clicked to the next slide. Bank names flashed across the screen. Credit Suisse, HSBC Singapore, Deutsche Bank, Cayman National. Account after account, emptied within a 6-hour window. The authentication codes used were legitimate, not hacked, not forged. These were real codes belonging to real authorized users. Whoever did this had legal access to Marcus Aldridge's financial empire. Kate felt her stomach drop. How is that possible? We have two-factor authentication, biometric verification, multiple signature requirements for transfers over 10 million, all of which were satisfied. Carmichael interrupted. That's what makes this so sophisticated. Every security protocol was properly executed. On paper, these transfers look completely legitimate. John leaned back in his chair, his face pale. "So you're saying someone with authorized access deliberately drained the accounts and made it look legal?" "Exactly." The room fell silent as the implications settled over them like a toxic cloud. The first suspect, Richard Pemberton. Carmichael's investigation quickly focused on Richard Pemberton, Marcus's longtime attorney, and the holder of his power of attorney. Pemberton had the legal authority. He had the access codes. And as the investigation deepened, troubling details emerged. Financial records showed that Pemberton had made several large personal investments in the months before the money disappeared. A luxury apartment in Monaco, a yacht docked in the Mediterranean, wire transfers to offshore accounts in his own name. "Where did this money come from, Mr. Pemberton?" Carmichael asked during a formal interview at FBI headquarters. Pemberton remained calm, his hands folded on the table. "My personal finances are separate from my clients' assets. I've been a successful attorney for 30 years. I have my own investments. Convenient timing, though, don't you think? You make several $1 million purchases just months before your client's fortune vanishes." "Coincidence," Pemberton replied coldly. "I've been planning these investments for years. My financial advisor can confirm." But Carmichael wasn't convinced. She obtained court orders to examine Pemberton's recent communications. What she found raised more questions. Encrypted emails, deleted text messages, phone calls to numbered accounts in Switzerland and the Cayman Islands, and most damning, communications with cryptocurrency brokers about large-scale asset conversion strategies. Kate confronted Pemberton directly. "Richard, tell me the truth. Did you take Marcus's money?" Pemberton's face remained impassive. "Kate, I've known your family for 3 decades. I was at your wedding. I held your children when they were born. I would never betray Marcus, or any of you." "Then explain the offshore accounts," the encrypted communications, the cryptocurrency consultations. I was exploring investment strategies for Marcus, Pemberton said quietly. He'd expressed interest in diversifying into digital assets before he left for Tibet. I was doing my job, nothing more. It sounded plausible. But was it the truth? Or was Richard Pemberton a master manipulator who'd spent years positioning himself to execute the perfect theft? The second suspect, David Kensington. While Pemberton fell under scrutiny, Agent Carmichael uncovered another troubling lead. David Kensington, the CEO of Aldridge Enterprises. Kensington had been Marcus's hand-picked successor, recruited from Goldman Sachs with a massive compensation package and promises of equity when Marcus eventually stepped back from day-to-day operations. But those promises had never materialized. Marcus had left for his world tour before finalizing Kensington's equity deal. For 4 years, Kensington had run a multi-billion-dollar empire with no ownership stake, no guaranteed future, just the hope that Marcus would eventually return and honor his promises. Financial forensics revealed that Kensington had been in significant personal debt, bad investments, a messy divorce, legal fees. By September 2023, he was drowning financially, despite his 6-figure salary. "Mr. Kensington," Carmichael asked during their interview, "isn't it true that you stood to gain substantially if Marcus Aldridge never returned?" Kensington shifted uncomfortably. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm implying that if Marcus disappeared permanently, the company's board might appoint you as permanent CEO, with equity, with control, with billions in future earnings. Isn't that a powerful motive?" "That's speculation," Kensington protested. "I've served this company loyally for 6 years. I had no reason to destroy the very empire I'd worked so hard to build." But Carmichael had more. Transaction records showed that Kensington had accessed sensitive financial systems on the night the money disappeared. His digital fingerprints were all over the authorization protocols. "You were logged into the system," Carmichael pressed, at 11:52 p.m. on September 11th, 5 minutes after the first transfers began. "What were you doing, Mr. Kensington?" Kensington's face reddened. "I received an automated security alert. Multiple large transfers were being processed. I logged in to investigate, but by the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. The money was already gone." "Convenient," Carmichael observed dryly. "You just happened to be awake and logged in during the exact window when the theft occurred?" "I'm the CEO," Kensington snapped. "I monitor the company constantly. That's my job." Was David Kensington a diligent executive who tried to stop the theft, or a desperate man who'd orchestrated the perfect inside job? Family fractures, siblings under suspicion. As the investigation expanded, Agent Carmichael turned her attention to the one group no one wanted to consider: Marcus's own siblings. Kate, John, and Vicky all had authorized access to various Aldridge accounts. They'd all been managing the empire during Marcus's absence, and they all had potential motives. Carmichael interviewed each sibling separately, probing for weaknesses, inconsistencies, and secrets. Kate's interview. "Mrs. Aldridge Monroe, financial records show you've been under significant personal stress. Your husband's business failed 2 years ago. You've taken out several loans, credit card debt exceeding $500,000. Isn't it true you desperately needed money?" Kate's hands trembled as she responded. "My personal finances have nothing to do with this. Yes, my husband and I have had difficulties, but I would never steal from my own brother. Yet you had the access codes, you had the authority, and you had the need. I didn't do this," Kate whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "I love Marcus. I just want him to come home." John's interview. "Mr. Aldridge, you've lived in Marcus's shadow your entire life. Second son, second choice. Always managing his empire but never owning anything yourself. That must create resentment." John's face hardened. "My brother gave me opportunities I never would have had otherwise. I'm grateful, not resentful. Yet colleagues describe tensions between you, arguments about strategy, disagreements about the company's direction. One executive told me you once said, 'Marcus treats us like employees, not family.' Is that true?" John hesitated. "We had disagreements. All families do. That doesn't mean I'm a thief. But you did access the financial systems on September 11th, didn't you? Why?" "I already explained this. I received the same security alert that Kensington did. I logged in to investigate, that's all." Vicky's interview. "Ms. Aldridge Chen, you manage international operations from San Francisco. You have deep knowledge of offshore accounts and cryptocurrency markets, more than anyone else in the family." Vicky crossed her arms defensively. "That's my job. Marcus put me in charge of international expansion because I understand global finance, which makes you uniquely qualified to execute a theft of this magnitude. You know the systems. You know the loopholes. You know how to move money across borders without detection. This is insane, Vicky protested. You're accusing me of stealing from my own brother based on my professional expertise? I'm simply noting that you had means and opportunity. As for motive, isn't it true that you wanted Marcus to sell the company 2 years ago? That you argued for cashing out and distributing the wealth to the family? Vicky's jaw tightened. I suggested that because Marcus was gone. We had no idea if he was ever coming back. I thought it made sense to protect the family's interests. Or perhaps, Carmichael suggested quietly, you decided to take matters into your own hands. Yeah, the family implodes. As suspicion spread like poison through the family, relationships that had lasted decades began to fracture. Kate stopped speaking to John after discovering he'd hired his own attorney and was preparing to sue for control of the remaining corporate assets. Vicky accused Richard Pemberton of destroying evidence and demanded his immediate removal as power of attorney. John publicly questioned whether Marcus was even still alive, suggesting that they should declare him legally dead and move forward with estate proceedings. And through it all, Agent Carmichael watched, knowing that families under pressure reveal their darkest secrets. Someone in this group was lying. Someone had stolen $2.7 billion, and someone was about to crack. The cryptocurrency revelation. 3 weeks into the investigation, Carmichael's cryptocurrency specialists made a breakthrough. We've traced the money, the lead analyst announced, pulling up blockchain transaction records. Most of it, approximately $1.8 billion, was converted into a relatively new cryptocurrency called NovaChain. It was advertised as a revolutionary blockchain platform with unprecedented security and anonymity. Was. Carmichael caught the past tense. The analyst nodded grimly. NovaChain collapsed 2 weeks ago. It was a sophisticated Ponzi scheme. The founders vanished with billions in investor funds, including apparently the Aldridge fortune. The room went silent as the implications sank in. Whoever had stolen the money hadn't just moved it. They'd inadvertently destroyed it. The $2.7 billion was gone. Not hidden, not recoverable, just gone. And somewhere, the thief was realizing they'd betrayed the Aldridge family for absolutely nothing. The return, November 2023. The impossible arrival, November 3rd, 2023. 7 weeks after the money vanished. Kate was in her Boston home office reviewing legal documents for the 20th time when her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something, instinct, hope, desperation, made her pick up. Kate. The voice was familiar yet transformed, weathered, distant, like an echo traveling across an impossible distance. Marcus? Her voice cracked. Is that really you? I'm at JFK, Marcus said quietly. I'm home. I need you to gather everyone. Kate, John, Vicky, Richard, David. I need to explain everything. Kate's hands shook so violently she nearly dropped the phone. Marcus, where have you been? Do you know what's happened? The money. All of it. It's gone. There was a long pause. Then Marcus spoke again, and his voice carried something Kate had never heard before. Absolute peace. I know, he said. I've seen everything. Past, present, future. I understand now, but you won't believe me until I show you. Can you arrange a meeting? Tomorrow. The Manhattan office. Everyone needs to be there. The line went dead. Kate sat frozen for several minutes, her mind struggling to process what had just happened. Then she began making calls. Marcus Aldridge had returned, and nothing would ever be the same. The reunion. November 4th, 2023, 2 p.m. The executive conference room at Aldridge Holdings had never felt so small. Kate arrived first, followed by John and Vicky. Richard Pemberton came alone, his usual confidence replaced by visible anxiety. David Kensington looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. Agent Carmichael attended as an observer, her notepad ready. And then the door opened. Marcus Aldridge walked in. He looked different, older, yes. 4.5 years had passed, but something else had changed. His eyes held a depth that hadn't been there before, as if he'd seen things that existed beyond normal human perception. He'd lost weight. His hair was longer, streaked with more gray. He wore simple clothes, dark pants, a worn sweater, prayer beads around his wrist. He looked like a monk who'd accidentally wandered into a corporate boardroom. Marcus, Kate breathed, rising from her seat. She wanted to run to him, to embrace him, but something in his demeanor made her hesitate. Marcus smiled gently. "Kate, John, Vicky, it's good to see you all again. Where the hell have you been?" John's voice was sharp, angry. "Do you have any idea what we've been through? The investigation, the accusations, the FBI?" Marcus nodded slowly, moving to the head of the conference table. He didn't sit. Instead, he stood there, his presence somehow filling the room despite his calm demeanor. "I know," he said quietly. "I've seen it all. I need to tell you where I've been, what I've experienced. But I need you to listen with open minds, because what I'm about to say will sound impossible, insane, but it's the truth." Agent Carmichael leaned forward. "Mr. Aldridge, before you say anything, I need to inform you that anything you say can be used in our ongoing investigation." "I didn't take the money," Marcus interrupted gently. "I know you think I might have, but I didn't. I'll explain everything, including who did." The room went electric with tension. The journey beyond. Marcus began to speak, his voice steady and measured, recounting an experience that defied every law of physics, biology, and rational thought. "After I arrived in Tibet in August 2018, I stayed at a monastery near Lhasa. I was studying with Lama Tenzin Dorje, learning advanced meditation practices, not the basic mindfulness you read about in self-help books, the real practices, the ones that alter consciousness at fundamental levels." He paused as if gathering the courage to continue. "In March 2019, I entered a deep meditation retreat. 3 months of complete isolation, 16 hours of meditation per day, no distractions, no communication, just practice." Kate remembered the phone call, March 14th, the last time she'd heard his voice before today. "Something happened during that retreat," Marcus continued. "Something I still struggle to put into words. My consciousness separated from my body, not metaphorically, actually separated. I experienced what Tibetan Buddhism calls a bardo state, a transitional consciousness between physical existence and something else." Vicky exchanged glances with John. This sounded like a breakdown, a psychotic episode, mental illness masquerading as enlightenment. But Marcus pressed on. "I traveled, not physically, consciously. I visited other solar systems, other galaxies. I saw civilizations that exist on planets orbiting stars whose light hasn't reached Earth yet. I communicated with consciousnesses that have never had physical form. I understood for the first time that reality is far more vast and strange than anything we've imagined." "Marcus," Kate said gently, "you sound like you're describing hallucinations. Maybe you were sick? High altitude can cause—" "I know how it sounds," Marcus interrupted. "But listen, I also accessed what Buddhism calls past life memories. I remembered being a merchant in ancient Persia, a soldier in feudal Japan, a farmer in medieval France. I saw the patterns of consciousness moving through time, taking different forms, learning different lessons." Richard Pemberton shifted uncomfortably. "Marcus, with all respect, you're describing religious visions, not reality." "And I saw the future," Marcus continued, ignoring the interruption. "Multiple possible futures, timelines branching like tree roots. In some futures, humanity destroys itself. In others, we transcend our limitations and become something magnificent. I saw it all." Agent Carmichael scribbled notes furiously. This didn't sound like a thief confessing. This sounded like a man who'd suffered a complete mental breakdown. Marcus's voice grew softer. "The experience lasted what felt like centuries, but when I finally returned to normal consciousness, Lama Tenzin told me that I'd been in deep meditation for 3 years and 8 months. I had no sense of time passing, no awareness of my body. I was elsewhere." John stood up abruptly. "This is insane. Marcus, you disappeared for 4 years and your explanation is that you were having mystical visions? While we were here managing your empire? While someone stole everything?" "I know," Marcus said quietly. "And I'm sorry. I didn't intend to be gone so long. But the experience, it changed me. Changed everything. Money doesn't matter anymore. The empire doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is consciousness, understanding, evolution." "That's easy to say when you're not the one who's been accused of theft," Vicky shouted, her voice cracking. "We've been investigated, interrogated. The FBI thinks one of us destroyed your fortune." Marcus's expression shifted to sadness. "I know who took the money, and it wasn't any of you." The room froze. The revelation, the truth emerges. Before I entered the extended retreat, Marcus said, I gave someone access to all my accounts. Someone I trusted completely. I did it because I knew I'd be unreachable for an extended period, and I wanted to ensure that if anything happened to me, there would be someone who could act quickly. Agent Carmichael leaned forward. Who? Marcus turned to look directly at David Kensington. The CEO's face went pale. David, Marcus said quietly, you need to tell them. Kensington stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing silently. Then slowly his shoulders sagged in defeat. I didn't mean for it to happen like this, Kensington whispered. I swear I didn't. Kate's voice was ice. You stole Marcus's fortune? I didn't steal it. Kensington's voice rose in desperation. I was trying to protect it. Marcus had been gone for 4 years. We didn't know if he was dead or alive. The company was vulnerable. I thought if I could consolidate the assets, convert them to cryptocurrency, I could preserve the wealth until Marcus returned or until we could sort out the estate. So you moved $2.7 billion into NovaChain, Agent Carmichael said coldly. A cryptocurrency that turned out to be a Ponzi scheme. Kensington's face crumpled. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. The brokers I worked with, they had credentials, references, everything looked legitimate. NovaChain was being advertised as the next evolution of blockchain technology. I thought I was being smart. I thought I was protecting Marcus's fortune from market volatility and legal challenges. You destroyed it, John said, his voice hollow. You destroyed everything. I know, Kensington whispered, tears streaming down his face. When NovaChain collapsed, when I realized the money was gone, I wanted to die. I've spent the last 2 weeks trying to figure out how to tell you all, how to explain that I'd lost everything trying to protect it. Marcus walked slowly around the table until he stood beside Kensington. To everyone's shock, he placed a hand on the CEO's shoulder. David, Marcus said gently, I forgive you. Kensington looked up, stunned. How can you forgive me? I destroyed your life's work. Marcus smiled, a deep, peaceful smile that seemed to come from somewhere beyond normal human emotion. Because I understand now that money is just energy. It flows, it transforms, it comes and goes. What matters isn't the wealth, it's what we learn from the experience. You made a mistake trying to do something good. That's not evil, that's human. But your fortune was never really mine, Marcus interrupted. I was just a temporary custodian. The real treasure I found wasn't in Tibet. It was in the journey itself, the understanding that consciousness is eternal, that we are all connected, that every experience, good or bad, is teaching us something essential. The family decision. The room remained silent for a long moment. Then Kate spoke, her voice thick with emotion. Marcus, what you experienced, the visions, the travels, the past lives, do you really believe all that was real? Marcus met her eyes. I know it was real, more real than anything I experienced in my entire life before that. But I also know you can't understand unless you experience it yourself. And that's okay. You don't have to believe me. You just have to accept that I've changed, and that I no longer need the empire we built. So what happens now? Vicky asked. The money's gone. The company's assets are frozen. We're all under investigation. What do we do? Marcus walked to the window looking out over Manhattan, the city where his empire had been built and where it had fallen. We start over, he said simply. We sell what remains. We pay our debts. We divide what's left among the family. And we move forward with the understanding that wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in consciousness, in love, in understanding. He turned back to face them. I'm going to spend the rest of my life teaching what I learned. Not as a guru or a prophet, just as someone who's seen beyond the veil and wants to help others understand that there's more to existence than what we can touch or measure. Richard Pemberton cleared his throat. Marcus, from a legal standpoint, we need to address the criminal investigation. Mr. Kensington will likely face charges for unauthorized movement of assets. I'll take full responsibility, Kensington said quickly. I'll cooperate fully with the FBI. I'll testify. I'll accept whatever consequences come. Agent Carmichael closed her notepad. Mr. Kensington, you'll need to come with me to make a formal statement. And Mr. Aldridge, we'll need extensive interviews about your account access protocols and authorization processes. Of course, Marcus said. Whatever you need. Teaching begins over the following weeks. As legal proceedings unfolded and corporate assets were liquidated, Marcus began sharing what he'd learned during his years of deep meditation. He held informal sessions in Kate's Boston home, teaching basic meditation techniques. He traveled to John's house in Chicago, explaining Buddhist philosophy and the nature of consciousness. He sat with Vicky in San Francisco, describing the visions he'd experienced and the insights they'd provided. Not all of them believed him. John remained skeptical, convinced his brother had suffered some kind of elaborate delusion. Vicky thought perhaps high-altitude sickness or malnutrition had caused extended hallucinations. But Kate listened, and slowly, tentatively, she began to practice the meditation techniques Marcus taught. "I'm not saying I believe you traveled to other galaxies," she told him one evening, "but I can feel something shifting when I meditate, something opening up. Maybe there's more to consciousness than I thought." Marcus smiled. "That's all I'm asking. Just openness. The rest will come in its own time." David Kensington pleaded guilty to unauthorized transfer of assets and was sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. But Marcus wrote a letter to the judge, describing Kensington's good intentions and requesting leniency. The sentence was reduced to 3 years with parole eligibility after 18 months. The Aldridge fortune, what remained after legal fees, settlements, and corporate liquidation, amounted to approximately $47 million, divided among Marcus and his 3 siblings. It was a fraction of what had been lost, but it was enough, and Marcus, who had once commanded a $2.7 billion empire, seemed happier with his $12 million share than he'd ever been at the height of his wealth. The quiet epilogue. 2 years later, Marcus Aldridge lived in a modest apartment in Brooklyn, teaching meditation classes and writing about his experiences. His book, Beyond the Veil: A Billionaire's Journey into Consciousness, became an unexpected bestseller, though Marcus donated all proceeds to meditation centers and Tibetan refugee organizations. Kate had taken over management of the remaining family investments and discovered she had a genuine talent for ethical, sustainable wealth management. She'd lost her fortune, but found her purpose. John remained skeptical of Marcus's spiritual claims, but admitted that losing everything had freed him from the constant pressure of maintaining an empire. He'd started a small consulting firm, and for the first time in his life, felt like his own person rather than Marcus's shadow. Vicky moved to Nepal, where she worked with a nonprofit supporting Tibetan refugees. She'd begun practicing meditation seriously and told Marcus during one of their video calls, "I still don't know if you really traveled to other galaxies, but I do know that something happened to you, something profound, and maybe I'm starting to experience it too." David Kensington served his sentence and was released after 20 months. When he emerged from prison, Marcus was waiting outside the gates. "I have a job for you," Marcus told him, "if you want it. Teaching business ethics at a Buddhist retreat center I'm helping to establish. You made a mistake, but you also learned from it. That makes you the perfect person to help others avoid the same path." Kensington wept as he accepted. And as for the money, the $2.7 billion that had vanished into a cryptocurrency scam, it was never recovered. The founders of Nova Chain were eventually arrested in Thailand and sentenced to lengthy prison terms. But the money they'd stolen from thousands of investors, including the Aldridge fortune, was gone forever. Destroyed, vanished, lost to the digital void. But Marcus Aldridge, standing in his small Brooklyn apartment, looking out over the city where his empire had once stood, felt no sadness, no regret, no sense of loss, because he'd discovered something far more valuable than wealth. He'd discovered that consciousness is eternal, that existence extends far beyond the physical, and that the greatest journey is not around the world, but into the depths of one's own mind. And that truth, once discovered, could never be taken away. The destructive secret.